It may not matter that Senator McCain has not had for 7 weeks now any other Republican contender to debate, because pay attention, and it becomes all too apparent that he does an excellent job of debating himself. Our third story in the countdown, the senator's mud wrestling on the economy and new flip-flopping about the endorsement of the controversial pastor John Hagee. That endorsement raised again on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, but only after McCain had invoked Senator Obama's association with William Ayers, the man against whom all Weather Underground-related charges were dropped more than 25 years ago. You may recall the Pastor Hagee Association is notable because the senator actively sought his stamp of approval, even though Hagee once called Catholicism the great whore and said that Hurricane Katrina was God's punishment for New Orleans holding a homosexual parade.
Sure. So was it a mistake to solicit and accept his endorsement?
Oh, probably, sure. But I admire and respect Dr. Hagee's leadership of his church. I condemn remarks that are anyway viewed as anti-anything.
Anti-anything? And though Senator McCain's latest campaign tour today in Selma, Alabama, was ostensibly focused on poverty, you might want to take a time out to nail down his economic plan, insisting yesterday he would stick with the Bush tax cuts that he used to decry, also pointing out in the last 8 years we saw an increase in the size of government by 40%. At this point, because he's willing to be daring enough to do so, we'll call in Washington Post columnist and associate editor, MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson. Good to see you in person, sir.
Good to be here, Keith.
Senator McCain on Pastor Hagee, anti-anything. Don't you have to be slightly more specific than that? I disagree with the stuff that you don't like.
Exactly. Anti-anything. It's not the same as pro-everything. I think if you parse it, it is. So he's pro-everything, all the good stuff at least. It doesn't make any sense, Keith. I mean, there's no way to kind of intelligently discuss what clearly makes no sense.
But you have to, because at some point he did it. The reason it was brought up was he brought up the Obama tenuous connection with a man who was never convicted or arrested for anything in the past. If you're going to do that, you're going to pursue Senator Obama's associations. Don't you have to clarify your own associations in the here and now, the ones that you sought, that you're using in parts of your campaign?
You should have to. Yes. You should have to. And you should have to be more specific than anti-anything.
I'm just having a long...
I'm just telling you what should be, Keith,
I know.
not what is.
A long day with some presidential candidates. McCain was also asked at this long piece about your paper's piece on his temper, and I understand that a person from his staff emailed in a long answer saying that there are at least 25 senators with greater tempers than McCain's,
which is a comforting thought, isn't it?
I suppose. Well, let's all send them into the Coliseum and have them take on the Lions, because they probably would win. But he passed it off as his own passion and others' exaggerations of old episodes. Is that a good enough answer?
No. If you read that piece, there was actually lots in it. First of all, it wasn't one or two incidents from his hot-headed youth. I mean, he was old enough to know better. You get into kind of an acknowledged shoving match with Charles Grassley, in a committee room. And to me, and this is just kind of me, but the stuff that was most disturbing were the incidents in which he went out of his way to try to destroy kind of, secretarial level people who had the temerity to stand up to him or say, "What's with you, buddy?" when he went into some sort of tirade. And saying, "What's with you, buddy?" provoked, "Don't ever hire this person. I want you to fire that person." That's very unattractive.
Well, yes, of course, but that's not while he's on his way to pushing a button somewhere, which is the other thing. The military component to all this was really the sort of thing that'll make you wake up in the middle of the night screaming.
Yeah, at 3 a.m.
Well, yes. Who's on the phone? It's McCain.
Right. Who the hell is this? Right.
The last point here about the economic plan, it's not one huge problem here. I mean, because you've got this logic about whether the Bush years were good or bad, or, again, Mr. McCain is anti-everything you don't like in the Bush economic program and pro-everything you might like.
Actually, he's pro a lot of things that nobody likes, though, in the economic plan. I mean, because he basically, if you kind of listen, he does say, everything's basically okay with the economy.
Sure it is.
Except I understand that nobody else thinks that, but it's basically okay, and let's keep those tax cuts that I actually inveighed against for many years. And You know, I tend to believe his first statement on the economy, which is that he doesn't really understand it very well.
Well, but everything's going fine, as you point out, because you can't afford to keep your home, and if you want to live in your car, you can't afford to move your car from one side of the street to the other. Avoid the alternate side of the street parking regulations.
A new form of prefab housing.
Eugene Robinson in the Washington Post and MSNBC. Great thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Good to be here. See you tomorrow.